we're right at 10 a.m. and I want to be respectful of everybody's time. I know we're all slowly getting back into the swing of things. So Amber or Abby, did you want to make sure we have a quorum and we can go ahead and get started?
I think we've got a quorum, Amber, but do you mind calling roll real quick?
Sure, I can do that. Kalia?
Here.
Charles?
Here.
Candy?
Here.
Rick? Mike Crowley? Julie?
Yeah.
Chuck Jacobus?
Here.
Cassie Locke? Oh, I think she's just coming in. Cassie?
Hello.
Hi, we were just calling roll, so I just admitted you to the room there. Marion?
Here.
Ruben? Bill?
Here.
Byron?
Here.
Okay. Oh, and our commission liaison, Commissioner Wilkinson. I see you're there.
Hi there.
All righty.
Okay, so we're good to go.
Yep, we've got a quorum.
All right, welcome. Happy New Year, everyone. It's wonderful to see you again, bright and shiny off of the holidays. Oh, there's Ruben. I'm going to let him in here. Welcome also to Ms. Wilkinson, our Commissioner Liaison. Thank you for joining us this morning. I also want to welcome our new committee members. We have Ms. Cassie Locke. Is it Locke or Lockie? We have Julie Jackson and Byron Underwood. Thank you so much for joining our committee. We're excited to have you on board with us this year. Just a couple of housekeeping items. As you all know, we've done this quite a bit virtually, but just mute yourself if you're not speaking. And there is a little hand. There's Mike Crowley. I'm going to let him in too. We're trickling in. There's a little right hand to raise your hand. There's Mr. Albers as well. If you would like to speak, I'm going to do my best to see if you would like a turn to speak, and we'll just keep it casual in that setting as well. And then the staff, if you'll help me with that, if there's somebody I missed, just let me know. Okay. Also, just be mindful of the Open Meetings Act as well. We want to keep everything very transparent to those that are watching. For agenda item number 4, discussion and possible action to amend the October 4th, 2021 meeting minutes. It was posted on the website under the meetings and minutes tab if you had a chance to take a look at that. We don't need to vote or approve them unless you have a change. So I would just open it up. Does everybody feel good about the minutes? Any changes or thoughts? Good. Okay, great. All right, well, agenda item number 5 is our election of our 2022 officers. We have the presiding officer, the assistant presiding officer, and the secretary. I just want to say a few words here. As your chair for the last 2 years, it's been a true honor to serve in this capacity. I've enjoyed every minute of it. It is something I'm very passionate about, and I really, truly admire each and every one of you and your expertise on this committee. Just dynamite professionals. And so thank you so much for allowing me to serve beside you. We're going to go ahead and vote for our next round of officers. And at this time, and staff help me here if I'm not going along procedure, but we would nominate, or if anybody would like to nominate somebody for the chair position. I have somebody I would like to nominate as your past vice chair, which is Dr. Charles Porter. I would like to nominate him as the chair moving into 2022. And for that reason is, one, he has been a fabulous co-chair. Also, he serves in many capacities at TREC with regards to the writing groups as well as the broker responsibility working group. So I would like to nominate Mr. Porter. And anybody else, please, I see Candy, raise your hand.
I nominate Marion.
Okay. Shaking your head. All right, so we have Mr. Porter and Ms. Napoleon. Anybody else for the chair, presiding officer chair position? Okay, so team, how would you like us to do this with regards to the Open Meetings Act? Do you want us to raise our hand? Do we send an email? Do we put something in the chat? How would you like us to do this?
So we can do this a number of ways, but I think what we've typically done in the past is just to do a voice vote, or in this context, because we're virtual, it may be easier to do a raised hand just to see how many folks are for, or each particular nominee. So since Mr. Porter was nominated first, we would go to him and then to Ms. Napoleon after that. Assuming that Mr. Porter didn't get the majority.
Okay, so all those in favor of Dr. Porter to be the chair, please raise your hand.
Some of the hand raises are virtual and some of the hand raises are in the video. I think if you do them all virtual, that'll be our best count. So hand raises, just to help Abby, it looks like Chair Youngblood, Mr. Underwood, Dr. Porter, Mr. Stedham, Ms. Jackson. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I also see 2 other hand raises, Cassie Locke and Mike Crowley. So it's a total of 7. Does that jive with what you have, Abby?
Yes. Okay, and Amber, can you just double check what the how many folks we've got from the committee on, just so I can determine the majority? I think I've got the number, but I just want to double check with you.
Yes, I show everyone as being present, so 12 members.
Okay, all right. Well, then that is.
Ask a question, please. Ask a question.
Sure.
Okay, this
Yes.
is Ruben. This is Ruben. I had my hand raised, but you didn't call me in or count me in on the vote.
5, 6, 7.
Ruben, you probably had your hand physically raised, but maybe not the virtual hand raise, which is in the top right corner.
Apologize.
No, that's completely fine. This is all such a learning experience. So it sounds like our total is up to 8.
Okay.
So we've
And
got
just for parliamentary procedures, did that motion from Ms. Chairman Youngblood need a second or not?
You don't need a second actually for nominations during the election process.
Okay, thank you.
You can have a second, but you don't need one.
I'm good. Thank
So that actually is the majority. So Dr. Porter would be nominated and now elected to serve as chair.
Yeah, awesome.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Ms. Napoleon, also, because I know you would be just as fabulous as well. So we're excited to have Dr. Porter be our chair for 2022. I'm going to help him co-lead the meeting as we move forward. We have an agenda and I'm no longer chair. So, but I'm going to kind of try to limp us along a little bit alongside staff. But let's go ahead and go to the assistant presiding officer, the vice chair. Would anybody like to nominate somebody for vice chair? And just unraise your hand. So click that little hand button so that it comes off. There you go. So that we can do that again. Would anybody like to nominate somebody or put their name in the hat for the vice chair? Mr. Stedham and Ms. Cook. Mr. Stedham, you would like to be the vice chair? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Great. Ms. Cook, I see your hand up as well. Candy.
Yes. Hang on, I lost you guys again.
Okay. Did you want to nominate or you want to put your name in the hat? Her name in the hat. All right. So we've got Ms. Candy Cook and Mr. Bill Stedham so far as putting their names in the hat. Anybody else?
And Dr.
Okay.
Porter, it looks like your hand is still raised.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, go on now.
like Tetris.
Sorry.
Okay, well, let's go with Mr. Stedham first. Who would like to vote for Mr. Stedham as the vice chair?
You can just raise your hand through Teams.
Okay. I see a couple people. There's Mr. Jacobus, Mr. Porter, Mr. Stedham. Okay.
Okay, so since we don't have a majority there, we would go on to the next nominee, which is Ms. Cook.
Okay, so everybody unclick your hands. And Mr. Porter, Dr. Porter, okay, I see your hand. Okay, everybody's unclicked. Okay, all those in favor of Ms. Cook, Ms. Candy Cook, for vice chair, raise your hand, please.
Okay, I'm showing 8, so that would be the majority.
All right, congratulations, Ms. Cook. Thank you so much for serving. Bill, thank you for putting your name in the hat as well. I know you would be just as fabulous. And then we also have the secretary. And so anybody would like to be our secretary next year? Candy, did you have a?
Watch this, Bill Stedham.
I was just going to say that. Thanks for beating me to it. Bill, would you be interested in serving at the secretary position?
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. All right. Anybody else for secretary? Anybody? All right. So all of those in favor of Mr. Bill Stedham as our secretary for 2022, please raise your hand. Wonderful.
Showing 9, so Mr.
There we
Stedham
go.
elected.
Wow, fabulous slate of officers for our ESAC committee. Thank you all for putting your name in the hat. I'm excited for what's to come this year. All right. Let's see. Okay, so let's move on to agenda item number 6. And Charles, if you want to take it on from here, happy
Sure.
to help you limp along here.
Good. I appreciate all the help. Thank you all very much. Do we have any public or written comments received on non-agenda items? I don't show that we have any so far. Vanessa, Abby, do we have any?
We have not received any.
Okay. All right. Jen, I think you've got an update for us on administrative audit and review.
Good morning. Yeah, I do. Actually, I have our compliance specialist, Gwen Jackson, here to provide that report for you.
And Jen,
but I do
one
wanna go
second,
back.
we've got the staff report on education enforcement matters, which is agenda item 7. Is Pam here?
What we should do is put together a monthly payment schedule.
All you're paying is
I'm
waste.
sorry, someone is not muted.
All you're paying is waste, and I'm paying everything else.
Yes, I am here. This is
Okay,
Pam.
great.
Okay, can everybody hear me? Okay, great. Hi, Happy New Year. My name is Pam Mayo. I'm a TREC enforcement attorney and also an ESAC liaison. Agenda item 7 on page 2 of the packet is the education complaints resulting in disciplinary action from September 15th to December 15th. The first case, the provider offered 2 CE courses after the course approvals expired. They received an agreed order, a reprimand, and a $200 admin penalty. The next case, the provider offered a CE course while their approval was pending, and they received an advisory letter, and you can see the violation reference on the chart. And then finally, a provider offered legal update 1 and 2 without approval, and they received an agreed order, a reprimand, and a $200 penalty. Does anybody have any questions about my report?
Pim, I assume the second one, that course actually did get approved?
Yes, it did. And they'd applied, like within a week of it expiring, but then offered it, a couple weeks later before receiving the approval. So sometimes people get confused about that process and whatnot. And since the course had not been expired very long, I decided to do an advisory letter.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, sorry, I had a different number. Now, Jen, you want to do the update?
Sure. So if you recall, for those of you who were at the last meeting, I believe it was Mr. Pena who asked for these materials to be included in this meeting. And so essentially what we've provided you with is an overview of the materials that we use to perform an administrative audit. The group had asked in particular about instructor qualifications. And so I do have Gwen Jackson here today, and she is my team's compliance specialist. And she's here to give you basically an overview of what the process is and what the progress we have made in terms of the administrative audits. Gwen, are you here? And
yes, I am.
Okay, and Amber, do you mind sharing the materials on the screen?
Yes, I'm happy to. Just direct me if you need me to go to a different page.
Sure, absolutely. And I think most of you know Gwen.
Good morning, everyone. We initiated the administrative audit last year, January, and so far it's been a very interesting process. I'll kind of walk you through what we do to kind of give you a little bit of an idea on how we process these. We have approximately 48 qualifying providers currently. And so far, the initial step is we send an introduction letter to the provider. And that letter includes the purpose of the audit. We describe an audit interview that will occur, and we schedule that audit interview. And we send a sample of this form as well as the instructor verification form. We send these samples to the providers as well. That will give them an opportunity to see what it is that we're looking for. During the scheduled interview, we discuss with them, first of all, we let them know that the audit is not a punitive audit. Basically, what we're trying to do is ensure that the provider is in compliance with TREC rules and that they understand the process for getting their courses approved and that they also understand those items that they're required to, that they're required to adhere to in regards to the rules. As you'll see in the administrative audit form, we also provide the rule numbers that are applicable to what their responsibilities are. During the audit interview, again, we talk to them about what their responsibilities are, let them know the purpose of the audit. We get a history, if we can, of the provider and their ownership. We discuss their any challenges that the provider may be having or experiencing. And then we ask the operations manager or the designated representative of that provider, we ask them some of the audit questions that are on this form that we're unable to complete without their, without their input. Then we also request certain items from the providers. We need a list of the instructors, excuse me, we need a list of the instructors that they've used within the last calendar year. And after we receive that list from them, we'll randomly choose 3 of those instructors, request their resumes and supporting documents to confirm their qualifications. At that time, we'd also request course and instructor evaluations for each instructor for 2 to 3 of the courses that they've taught. We request a copy of flyers that they use to advertise their course offerings, if applicable. We ask them to confirm their website address because we also review their website for advertising compliance. We request access to a copy of their current pre-enrollment agreement that they may be using, as well as access to executed copies of their enrollment agreements to verify that the students have signed those. We request a copy of their refund policy if it's separate from the enrollment agreement, and we request access to student attendance records as well as course completion records. Okay. After the audit interview, which is performed remotely, we then send a letter by email to follow up the audit interview. And that letter provides a list of the items that we're requesting and that we need to further facilitate that audit. And I'll pause now if anyone has any questions regarding that portion of what we do.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I have a question back on page 1, item number 7. It refers to, it says, does the school have any unpaid judgments for non-payment of liability? Is that referring to also to like the agenda item we just had before us, where we had 2 of these schools who were given a penalty of $200? Does that penalty turn into a judgment, or how does that work?
That's a good question. I don't, Pam, are you able to respond to that from the enforcement end?
Sure. When we do an agreed order, we receive payment before we enter the order. So that does not count. It would only possibly count if it was a default order and then it went to collection through the Attorney General, which does not happen with our enforcement case or education cases.
Okay, so are they you made a comment. Are they given a time frame to pay that? Is it before the next class that they teach, or is it done like within 30 days, or what?
Yes, usually I send the proposed agreed order, and they're given about 2 weeks to review the order and send in the payment. Okay,
so then item number 7, what type of judgment are they speaking of?
I would think any unpaid judgments for any civil suits that may be out there.
Okay, I understand now. I thought that 2 were related. I apologize for that.
That's good. That's okay.
Thank you.
Just out of curiosity, how often has this come up?
So far in the audits that we've performed, there have been no unpaid judgments.
It's just interesting. Any other questions?
It looked like Candy might have had a comment.
Please, Candy.
In the chat.
Candy?
Just being the nerd that I am, in number 7, on
Spelling.
judgments, we put an E after the G. And typically that's only in the British form of judgments.
That's right.
That's the appraiser coming at you. Sorry.
British form. Good catch.
Good catch, yes.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you, Gwen.
Okay. Now, then the auditor performs the following tasks. After we've received the information that we've requested from the provider, during that time, we also searched our records to locate any documents confirming that an out-of-state provider has a designated attorney in fact to accept service of process and act as a custodian of records. We also request a copy of their statutory bond or other security to ensure that that's still in place. And we also determine if the provider has timely paid their annual operation fees for the last 4 years. We also determine if that provider has been placed on probation by TREC due to low exam passage rates. And then upon receipt of the instructor list, we request the resumes, supporting documentation, as well as instructor and course evaluation forms for at least 3 of the instructors who teach for that provider. We review those instructor qualifications and instructor and course evaluations for 2 to 3 of the courses that they've taught. And then we complete the qualifying instructor verification form, which is the second form in the agenda materials for this item. We make sure that the provider is using current instructor and course evaluation forms that are required by TREC rules. And we also review the provider website and their advertising flyers. We review their enrollment agreements and their refund policy for compliance, as well as the executed copies of the enrollment agreements to make sure that the signage requirements are met. And then the auditor completes the qualifying provider administrative audit forms. Then to conclude the audit, we contact the provider to discuss our audit findings. We'll send them an audit findings letter and request a management response from them for those items that do not appear to be in compliance, or for any other items that we find that that we have questions or concerns about. If we find that the audit findings are satisfactory, and that involves the provider giving us a management response, we review that management response to ensure that the provider understands everything that's been requested and that everything has been taken care of that we've shown concern about. And then we will, if everything is satisfactory, then we'll issue an administrative audit compliance letter. If we find that there are items that are still non-compliant, we work with that provider to make sure that they do come into compliance with those items. Any unsatisfactory management response or unwillingness to comply with TREC rules results in our sending an audit disapproval letter to the provider, and then we'll send a staff-initiated complaint to our enforcement division. Are there any questions on that piece?
I have a comment or a question about the advertising part.
Mm-hmm.
So on any given week, any month, we have, I get these flyers from a provider who's doing a 1-hour lunch and learn or a 3-hour class. And on that flyer, they've got several different sponsors or people who are sponsoring this particular meeting. Do they fall under the same advertising guidelines for the sponsors when it comes to the flyer itself, or is there anything on there that says they have to be separately bordered or something to that effect?
No, many of the providers, or some of the providers, they have sponsors, and as long as it's clear on that advertisement who is actually offering the course, the provider's name needs to be clear and conspicuous. We've been requesting that they also include the provider's provider number. And then, of course, the sponsor, typically the sponsor's name does appear on that advertising flyer, but it must be obvious who is actually offering that course.
Okay, thank you.
I see Rick's got his hand up.
Gwen, I have a 3-part question for you on the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
First is, how many of the providers have gone through this interview process? And the second question is, what percentage do you think that is of the total? Mm-hmm. And then the third part is, how long before the next round of interviews for everybody?
Okay. As I mentioned earlier, currently we have 48 qualifying providers. So far, we have completed 7 audits. Keep in mind, we started the audits in roughly in February of last year. And of course, performing the audits is not the only thing that we do. We also we also review websites for compliance for our continuing education providers as they complete their or submit their renewals. Okay, but we've completed 7 audits, and we currently have 14 in progress. And when I say in progress, they're in various stages of the audit process. We request audit documents. We give them a certain amount of time to provide those documents to us. We review those documents, and then often there are items that need to be addressed, and we will send them a request for response to either change or come into compliance or answer any inquiries that we may have. So it's kind of a back and forth process until we get things finalized.
And how often let me give you a gauge. The State Board of Insurance with the title insurance companies does a similar kind of audit interview process, and they try to hit everybody once every 2 years. Does Trek have a schedule that they're going to try to keep on this?
Currently, everyone is in their, we're going through the first round, if you will. Okay. And basically we've roughly done in various stages with almost half of them. Okay. And that's as of, we started this in February again of last year, so that we anticipate being able to complete all 48, hopefully by April or May of this year. So that'll be a complete round. And that's just the administrative part, keeping in mind that these providers are also continuing education providers, most of them, so that they get their websites reviewed. They get their websites reviewed every 2 years. In terms of the administrative audit itself, we're anticipating that maybe every 4 years would be good for our qualifying providers, because they are getting at least their websites reviewed, every 2 years.
I think just to add, I think one of the plans that we had was to associate, once we get through this first round that Gwen's talking about, then we associate a subsequent review with the renewal of their 4-year approval term.
Good, that makes some sense.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Gwen.
No, I was just going to ask if there were any other questions as well.
Doesn't look like there are any. Gwen, do you have more of your report?
No, that concludes my report. Just trying to give you a little background on the audits and the audit procedures and the status.
Great, thanks. Bill, you've got a question, I see.
Yes, sir, I do. Gwen, just one question. When do we think this will move into the non-qualifying providers?
That's a good question. Currently, well, we need, I'll let Jen.
I can help. Yeah, sure. I can help with that. So we have approached the overall compliance and audit program in a phased approach. So, when we started a couple of years ago, we initiated the program by reviewing CE providers' websites for compliance. We have a little over 500 CE providers, and felt like that was a good jumping off point. Those providers reach all of our license holders. And so from a consumer protection standpoint, that was a good jumping off point. Phase 2 has been the launch of our administrative audit of QE providers. That pool is significantly smaller, which we also felt would give us a good laying the groundwork for once we get through all of these providers. Then the next phase could be including the continuing education providers in an administrative audit. So I know that doesn't give you an actual projected date, but in the last 2 years, we've gotten through the CE website compliance, moved fully into the qualifying education provider audits, with the next phase intending to be the administrative audits of continuing education providers. So I imagine you could see that, you know, my thought is that we will move in that direction within this calendar year.
Okay. Thanks, Jen.
Sure.
Anybody else?
Yes, I have a comment to make.
Please.
And really, it's a kudos for the Trek team, the way they've rolled this out, and the use of SharePoint and technology to get through these audits. The communication from Gwen and her team has just been fantastic. So I think you guys are doing a great job, and we really appreciate the hard work you're putting behind this.
I would echo that. I would definitely echo that. As somebody who's going through an audit for our providership, it's been a really great process and easy to work through and communicate with Trek. So agreed.
Very good. Thanks, Mike. Anybody else before we move on to number 9? Okay, Kalei, help me a little bit with the background of number 9, and then we can discuss this and go together.
Sure. Yeah. So to kick us off on agenda item number, we're actually on number 8. Discussion and possible action to create a new qualifying education course related to the role and responsibilities of the broker and agent. So just to recap a little bit, our commissioners have been really laser focused on just that topic of the broker agent relationship, and you know, the years of complaints and things that you as professionals and we all as professionals have seen out in the field with regards to agents not really knowing what their broker is supposed to be doing and brokers not really doing what they're supposed to be doing. So this has been a topic that I think we've gone around and around on for a long time. Commissioner Chairman Kestner has been just sort of laser focused on as one of his initiatives in his tenure. And so the staff, we had a call a couple of weeks ago just to chew over this idea, but the staff, and I will certainly let them speak to it as well, have sort of brought forth an idea of having a 30-hour broker agent relationship course that would replace or add onto the 180 hours of pre-licensing education that agents have to take to become licensed currently. One of the thoughts here is, and just as a recap, they have to take 180 hours. One of those courses is finance. It's a 30-hour finance course, and I think we could all agree that is important. With that said, there could be an option to move that course as an option into the SAE, the Salesperson Apprenticeship courses, as an option within those first 90 hours, those 2 years of renewal that they have to take 90 hours in, and replace that finance course with the agent broker relationship course, a 30-hour broker agent relationship course. And so, you know, that's one option. Another option would be for this committee to review adding yet another 30-hour course to the pre-licensing materials. One area to consider is that, you know, our governor has, you know, kind of some pauses about barriers to entry, as we saw from his letter over the last, I believe, 18 months. And so, you know, something to consider that we might get pushback if we added or made a recommendation to add yet another 30-hour course to pre-licensing requirements. So we talked about potentially making the recommendation, if this group really is for this idea, to replace one of the 180-hour courses, one of those 30-hour courses, with a broker agent course. And so I think I've captured that. I will just preface this by saying I think we take it even a step further, and I would like to entertain this group to entertain the idea of also making this course a requirement for those getting their broker's license. The rationale behind that would be that both the broker, the incoming broker, the aspiring broker, as well as the agent are taking that same course and have a dual understanding of what it is they are both, what roles they're both playing. And so that way there's some synergy there. It's just a thought I had as far as if we're going to do this, let's take it a step further and also make the brokers, the incoming people who are applying to become a broker, also take this course. So Jennifer or Vanessa, I don't know if Vanessa's on the call, please tack on if I've missed anything.
I'll just add one thing and then turn it over to Jen. So depending on, whether the committee likes this idea or not, some of the things that, we talked about could require statutory changes. So for instance, real estate finance is currently required by statute. So if that's the direction ultimately the committee wanted to go in, then we're looking at a statutory change. We're talking about that. And I don't think anyone expects this to be a quick process anyway. So this is going to take some time and require, a lot of discussions, again, if this is something we want to do, but just to be aware of that. And then just kind of process-wise, I wanted to touch on this briefly before turning it over to Jen because she's got the background that she can talk about. So again, if this is something we want to do, if the committee decides, this is an idea worth pursuing, then actually the goal of the meeting would be to provide some type of rough outline, rough draft of what this course could potentially look at. So that the broker responsibility working group, who will meet after you, could take a look at and provide some feedback. This actually could touch on some of the things that they're working on currently. And so again, if this is something you decide is worth pursuing, the idea is they could look at whatever we produce at this meeting today and provide some feedback and then get that feedback back to us for our April meeting. So just wanted to touch on those 2 points briefly. And Jen, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, I think both of you have covered really a lot of the background, the impetus for this concept. And I'll just add that, we have a 30-hour real estate brokerage course right now. That course is required for all broker applicants to take. The course really is focused more on business building. There are some aspects of broker, actual responsibilities in there, but it really is a business building course, how to set up your business, marketing plan, that kind of thing. So I think the idea behind this course is, like Kalea and Abby said, where are we missing in that new sales agent and what they can expect or should expect of their broker. And then on the flip side, what does the broker who's going to start sponsoring sales agents need to know about their responsibilities and duties to those that they work with? And so I think that, that's where this course is coming from. I put together, I think there are applicable areas from the broker responsibility 6-hour course that could be important to elaborate and expand upon in this type of course, in this new course. And I did put together a really rough initial draft, and I don't know if this is the time, if it's appropriate for me to share that. There you go, with this group. But the idea for ESAC would be, and what we've done historically with qualifying courses, is go through and create a draft outline. We wouldn't be writing a course, but the group would be establishing the content required for education providers to develop this type of course. So that's what you see before you right now, is some initial concepts, and Abby, were you going to say something?
Oh, I was just going to add, so I think the two materials on the real estate brokerage outline, and this is the actual broker responsibility outline. I'm not sure Amber has your draft document.
Oh, right. Okay. So yes, in the materials, you have the outline for the current broker responsibility course. And then you also have thank you, Abby, the course approval form for the current real estate brokerage course.
So I think for the purposes of today, and I know Candy has something to say, I'm sure that we have comments coming, but what I would say is, do we like this idea? Consensus, thumbs up. Should this be an additional qualifying course, replace a course? Let's get some high level kind of decisions going here, and then we can maybe get into the nuts and bolts of what should be in that 30-hour course, so that we can make a recommendation to the broker responsibility working group. Is that sort of what we're shooting for, staff team? Just to
I think those are.
Yes, is this a thing we want to do? What are some ideas around this? And then maybe we can start going into some of the nuts and bolts of it at maybe another meeting.
Well, and I think the goal, if this is again something that the committee likes, would be to actually have a document to show to BRWG at the end of this meeting. And so Jen mentioned she did kind of put together a draft of something that we could use again if the committee decides to go in that direction. So I think that would be the first order of business, is establishing, is this something that the committee even likes?
Great.
Okay. Looks to me like Candy, you had your hand up first.
Okay, so one of the things that I do is I encourage people to get their broker's license, and when they're working towards it, they are dedicated. Can we give this course? Could we make this course required for the absentee brokers? Because if you read the disciplinary actions, I think in the last 2 months, we had 3 that came through of lack of supervision. I don't think it's the new brokers coming in. I think it's the old brokers who have either not followed or have gotten lazy about it. I love the fact of going for the agents and bringing it up. I think it's spectacular, because I can't tell you how many times I hear from agents going, I didn't know my broker was supposed to do that. And when they take broker responsibility, they have a heart attack. And then just to make it very clear, I got accused of recruiting in a class. And guys, I don't want any agents. I haven't had agents in a couple of years. I'm not taking anybody. Don't ask me. But my comment is if you take this class and you find that your broker may not be meeting your needs, you may need to do some research and reach out and look for somewhere else to go. And somebody felt that was recruiting. I'm not recruiting. I'm trying to prevent seeing somebody on disciplinary actions. So I think the proposal, I think this is phenomenal. I think this is, I'm very passionate about educating those agents as they come in. I don't know how we get the old brokers to understand what they're supposed to be doing. And just so that everybody understands, I am an old broker. My number starts with a 3. I have been in this way too long. So I'm passionate. I'm on this. I'd love to be on the work group.
That's a good point, Candy. I can't tell you how many times, and many of us, I'm sure, on this committee have had calls from agents after they've taken our courses. And one of the first things I ask, well, this is after the course is over. Do I answer the question? I'm not sponsoring their agent. I want to ask them, have you talked to your broker? And many times, I didn't know I could ask my broker about that, or no, my broker won't help me. And Candy, it drives me crazy, especially when it comes to water and minerals questions. And then I don't know that they even tried to ask their broker. And then I wonder, I shouldn't be the one that's given those kind of answers, I tell
Charles,
them,
there are brokers who say, I had one tell an agent that she could not ask any questions without being charged to ask those questions until she had a certain production level. which just, it's horrifying to me that this comes up. Everybody, I say TTYB, talk to your broker.
Yep, absolutely. Good point. Mike, you're next.
Thanks, Charles. Hopefully I don't ruffle any feathers here. I'm going to start off by saying that this is probably long overdue. I think a lot of folks could agree. But throwing a 30-hour course at the problem, I don't know if that's going to be the actual solution. Because some of these folks are just skipping through the training, and we all know this. This might be the first step. Maybe it's going somewhere along the lines where the inspectors have to actually do some hands-on stuff in order to finalize their license. Maybe it's something a little bit more in depth than just a 30-hour class. Maybe it's a provisional license. If we're talking about having to take this to a rule change, then a provisional license that requires them to have so much time actually in production, which is going to force brokers to do this training, or something along those lines, versus just a 30-hour course. If we do decide it's a 30-hour course, and I know finance was brought up, keep in mind a big part of the finance class is fair housing, and that's something that we don't want to lose or put off until after the fact. So making sure we keep the big fair housing part, maybe it's adding it to this 30-hour course or something else, but just the training itself, I don't know if it's going to do what we're looking to do.
Okay. Ruben, you're next.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm all in favor of this. I work 7 days a week as a realtor and deal with a lot of agents. I'm a HUD listing broker. And just yesterday, I had a call from an agent who says, "What is HUD?" And I said, "Well, it's backwards is duh." But I said, "It's the housing urban development." And I said, "Well, I don't know anything about it." I said, "Well, have you asked your broker?" And my broker said to call you. My broker says to call you. Those are the answers that I get from these agents. My broker said they don't know about this or know about that, or check with the listing agent, and so on and so on. And I just find it, I don't know that 30 hours is enough, but I think something needs to be put into place to help educate people, not just on REO properties, just in real estate in general. Ethics and professional courtesy are not anywhere on this plan that I see. And I think it's really, really important for our real estate agent, realtor members to have some kind of information on how to act ethically, even though it's supposed to be covered. But, a lot of agents say, "Well, I took your class that you gave on how to do business with the REO business. But I got back to my office and my broker said, don't even pay attention to that. You're going to do things my way, not that way. You're going to do it the way I want it done." So it's opposite of what I just taught them or helped them understand. The ethics part of it is unbelievable of what I go through on a day-to-day basis with real estate agents. On this agenda, one of the items in there talks about geographical. We've got, and Mike can share this with me a little bit. San Antonio Board of Realtors recently encompassed the Uvalde Board of Realtors. The Uvalde agents submit listings onto the San Antonio Board of MLS, and they also come to San Antonio to sell properties. They know nothing about the territory. They know nothing about the San Antonio area. They take a listing in Uvalde or Sabinal or another little town close by. An agent here finds it in the MLS, goes to show it over there. They know nothing about that area. Only because we're united in the MLS together doesn't mean that makes them an expert in the geographical area of knowing the economy there, knowing the housing a part of selling real estate. I think that needs to be also looked at in a different manner. But I'm 100% in favor of moving forward with something to help educate the real estate industry on what we're doing with high emphasis on ethics, professional courtesy, and just overall being a real estate agent / realtor. Thank you.
Good point. Bill, you're next.
Well, I'm 100% in favor of this. Where my trepidation is removing finance out of the 180 hours it's required, not only due to the fair housing, However, some of the financing actually helps these new agents in what they're doing. I'm not a big fan of increasing 180 to 210 hours, but this course is badly needed. We could all go into war stories that happen to us every single day. I'm part of an extremely large brokerage, and this is something that we deal with every single day, from agents saying that their broker will not answer any questions, their broker doesn't know, they've never seen their broker. And the latest one, which I've heard mentioned, is they have to pay their broker to ask a question. So all of those are interesting and unique things. So I'm 100% in favor of this.
Okay. Julie, you're next.
Hi, so I'm 100% in favor of this as well. But I have noticed over, especially since 2020 hit, the execution with all these people being able to take, sorry, just an online course. The ones that are actually getting to take it with someone virtually training them, I don't see as much issues, but I feel like these guys that are just taking it online, visually just zipping through it, aren't seeing half of what they should be learning anyway. And so I feel like to add that course, I absolutely want that course in there, but I feel like we have to do something to make them actually be present in their training and their learning.
Good point. Marion?
Sure, definitely love this and think it's needed. One thing that I noticed both in the current broker responsibility and in the outline of the qualifying brokerage course is we're only looking at 20 minutes talking about the responsibility of the real estate brokerage, or I guess you could say the broker. And then under broker responsibility, we really miss the whole mentoring thing. That's where most realtors and most brokers who are looking to become brokers, that's where everybody's really looking for. What does this mentorship look like? Does that mean that you have to hold their hands? And I know we really talk about that a little bit more, but I'd like to see or really bring out more of that mentorship and put some guidelines around it, because social media, they're always going out to social media and asking for mentorships. As a matter of fact, out on Candy's site, there was a big, huge conversation as to whether or not other brokers should mentor your agents. So I really think that that is one thing that from a TREC level, it really needs to be addressed a little bit more in detail, both in broker responsibility and if this 30-hour course is approved, that along with some other risk reduction things. Okay.
Good. Thanks, Marion. You know, it occurs to me, I don't think there's ever enough emphasis, and this is where, not being an attorney, y'all can fuss at me about this, but I don't think I see brokers understanding the License Act, the Occupations Code, Chapter 1101. In fact, I get the calls from a lot of attorneys that have no clue, even when they're involved in a lawsuit, what 1101.652B3 and 4 and what it really means about disclosure. They don't have an idea, and kind of shocked about some things that some of us are aware of. I think there should, to me, whatever course we decide, I think there should be a lot more emphasis to, especially a broker. I mean, I think they ought to know the Occupations Code, Chapter 1101, backwards and forwards and upside down, starting with 1101.001. What do brokers do? Also, I'd like us to think a little bit about, you know, we focus so much on residential. There are a lot of commercial brokers that fall under everything here. And how many times do I have residential brokers call us and say they really want to get into commercial, but they have absolutely no idea? And we tried to clean that up with the geographic competency changes this last time. But all those things I think are important. Maybe to, Clay, help me, but maybe to move this forward, I don't hear much consensus yet that we want to drop the finance course. Is that what I'm?
Yeah, I think that's true, and I definitely agree with you, Mike. Fair housing is obviously a huge issue and needs to remain. I think that finance needs to remain. My only trepidation there was with regards to the governor's letter of barrier to entry. and that being a roadblock for us. And so there's a couple of avenues that I sort of I'm drumming up here. One of them is replace content and make some mandatory content changes within the current 180 hours with regards to agent broker relationships, and sort of make that much more beefier content. Maybe also do the same for the brokerage course, the 30-hour brokerage course. Maybe we can replicate some content there to ensure that that course isn't just about building your business, but also about what those responsibilities entail. So maybe there's some content manipulation that we can agree to, or we can go for it and say, no, we want a dedicated 30 hours and we will create the content that's necessary to go into the 30 hours and make that recommendation. I also kind of heard the same thing, that we didn't really get consensus about adding on to the 180 hours. So we need to sort of iron that out.
Sure. Rick, you're up.
All right, thanks. Well, I've fought to try to get higher hours, and I failed a couple of years ago. The governor's letter is a big hurdle to get over, and I don't think we're going to win, at least anytime soon, on increasing the 180 hours. I personally think this course is very much needed as well, but I also think everything that's in the 180 hours is needed as well. This, and I'm trying to think of a way to shoehorn it in, because, and different people interpret the governor's letter differently. But he does talk about barrier to entry. And I see that as, okay, get them in, but that doesn't say anything about the education that they need to continue. They need to keep up their education. We've got continuing education already. There's a chance that we could make it a required SAE course, that in the first year or 2 years after you get the license, then you've got to take this 30 hours. They'll have a little more background. They'll understand it better. That might be a way to do it. And trying to hit somebody with all the education they need before they ever get their feet on the ground, they don't get it all. They need to get some real life experience, and I think this is a great course to have a little real life experience under your belt. If we can't do something like that, make it an SAE requirement, an additional SAE requirement, maybe we do another continuing education class that's required. It wouldn't be 30 hours, but at least it'd be something. So those are my initial thoughts.
Those are good. One thing that this experience idea, I think, I may be wrong, but I know at SMU, when my son was going to wanted an MBA there, they said, we'd like you to go away for a couple of years and come back. So you can understand where you're out in the real world. And I think that's really something, Rick, that's a good point to think about. Byron, you're next. Byron, you there?
Yes, sorry, it's that unmute button.
It's okay.
It's a new tool. All of the stuff that's listed in that broker responsibility content outline, it's actually listed in the License Act, and hopefully in .003, which is the part. Sorry for the geek out there. We should be teaching that already. And since it's there, saying, well, replace something like finance. I know that's something that's most likely not on the table. The information is there, so perhaps a refocus or readjustment of the courses that are there already to further talk about the responsibility of the broker and that relationship between the agent and the broker is more appropriate than the addition of a 30-hour course. And with Mr. Albers talking about perhaps a CE course that then reviews that material even in the first renewal for that agent, because the brokers already have it. with the broker responsibility unless they don't sponsor anybody. And so adding those hours on is something that I think creates redundancy or potential redundancy. And perhaps we should look at focusing instead on what is the content of each of the 6 courses that are already required. And that's it.
Good point, Byron. Thank you. Chuck?
Yeah.
You're up.
Having taught all of these courses over the last 48 years, all the course content is in the existing programs. And I think Byron's right. If you teach real estate brokerage and law of agency with any sense of depth at all, you go through the broker responsibility course with any sense of depth at all, the real estate law course, which everybody appears to have overlooked over the years, also covers a lot of these topics. If we're going to make a change, let's bolster what we have, not develop another course. We have plenty of courses. I do a lot of talks nationwide on this topic. I've been very active with the Real Estate Educators Association across the country. I've seen our educational process versus every other state's educational process, and we by far have the best programs in the country, no question about it. Now, if we want to beef them up a little bit, great. I think that's a wonderful idea. Trying to create a new course when you've got all this information in at least 3 other courses, I think you're just going to be spinning your wheels. I don't really think you need to do that. I was looking at the topics, and the topics in here, one of them is negotiating a commercial lease. Now, how are you going to teach a broker how to negotiate a commercial lease? This is a totally different topic. I go to another topic here that talks about management style and procedures. How many brokers have a management program, have a management degree, have a graduate degree in management? I teach in the graduate program at the University of Houston in real estate. I don't know that we even discuss management styles in our program. So a lot of these things are training issues. They are things that you learn outside in other coursework. Management styles and procedures and how to deal with people and personality things and the ability to communicate is much more important than throwing in another 30-hour course. We don't teach people how to communicate. We're Zooming now. We don't sit and talk very much anymore. And I know when I went back to online classes, or I mean in-class classes at the University of Houston, it was a very different environment. And talking to them and having them coming up after class and asking questions and developing personal relationships is a whole lot more important than throwing another 30-hour course at them. There's a whole lot more to managing an office, and I think we already teach it. Broker responsibility, I think, is one of the best courses I've ever taught. I like it. It's fun. It's full of information. It scares the ever-loving crap out of everybody who's taken the course, which is part of why we teach it that way, because they need to be afraid. They need to understand what their responsibilities are. And throwing another 30-hour class, I don't think does it. I think we need to bolster what we have. So my 2 cents worth. Thanks for putting up with me.
Thank you. That's a very good point. Thanks, Chuck. Anybody else have any comments? I don't see anybody's hand raised now. Somebody else? What's best? We've got so many ideas out here. What's best to move forward? It looks like I guess we could have a vote and decide if we want to try another course. What do y'all help me with this? Do we move forward? Any ideas?
Well, I think it might be worth maybe just doing a thumbs up down consensus between 2 ideas. One of them is to replace a 30-hour course, or maybe we don't get stuck on the hours, the number of hours. It seems to me like there was consensus around like bolstering current content in the course somehow, and the current curriculum that is already there. you know, the question being, is it going to call it out enough? Is it going to do enough of what the sort of intention and rationale behind this initial idea was? And so that's sort of one. Do we recreate current content or do we add content? Would be the two questions that I'm hearing.
Okay, I agree. Well, do you want to do a thumbs up on recreate first? Thumbs up or thumbs down? Everybody? I guess show it. I can't see everybody.
Let me ask a question before we do that.
Sure.
And that's to recreate content. The textbook writers really hate it when we change up what's in the textbook. They have to go back and do a big rewrite a lot of times when they weren't intending to. So I guess a question is, can we change the emphasis in teaching without changing anything in the book? That's a question for you, Chuck. And what would you think about if we have to change stuff in the book?
We've already screwed up the entire textbook industry. And, you know, because I've got textbooks that are vetted throughout every college and university in the United States. And when I get to Texas, you tell me I have to reorder everything on how I do a presentation, which makes no sense at all to me. But that's what you guys, or this committee, is dictated that we do. And that's not a building blocks of education, which is how I was brought up in the education industry. We have a certain type of building block theory when we're presenting topics, and we get more complicated the longer we get into the topic. And we do all the simple stuff first and then build on it. And when you build on it, you keep dragging in the old stuff to reinforce and confirm their existing knowledge in a lot of these areas. Now, when you tell me that I need to add certain things to textbooks, that's why I write textbooks. I've had teachers in Pennsylvania, New York, Florida call me and say, Chuck, can you add in a section on this? Can you add in a section on that? That never bothered me for 1 second. I was always glad to respond, expand the topic material, do some more research, maybe add a chapter, and whether it's the brokerage book, the law book, the principles text, whatever it happens to be, if you have a good suggestion, good authors take it and run with it and expand it. And so if you want me to expand and go into a little more depth on a given topic, I'm happy to do it. But negotiating a commercial lease doesn't fall into that perspective when you're trying to educate a student or you're trying to educate an existing broker to be better at what he is. Because negotiating a lease and teaching him about management styles, I don't think is education that's going to make him more ethical or more knowledgeable on the subject matter. And what we're trying to teach here is subject matter. And like I said, I've been teaching these courses for 48 years. And I have always tried to emphasize subject matter beyond anything else, because if you lose your grasp of the subject matter, you're really in deep shit, because we have to keep pushing the hard stuff. We just do. And to the extent that we push people away from the harder topics or say, let's make this a little bit easier, I don't think is education. Education is discipline. And you got to make it a little tougher. You got to put more stuff into it. And deepening the topic in any book, whether it's the law book, the principles book, the brokerage book, whatever book it happens to be, deepening the topic, I think, is always a good choice. Because your instructors may have to relearn a little bit. You may have to change your instructor's manual a little bit. But it's getting to the meat of the topic that I think is important. And if what we're seeing here is we're not getting enough meat into the topic, let's add some meat to the topics we've already got. And I think that gets a lot more down the road than creating a course that talks about negotiating a commercial lease or marketing strategies. We have courses on marketing.
Agreed. Anybody else have a thought on this? I'm trying to figure out a way to get us to move forward with it. And Abby, please.
I just wanted to interject really quickly. I am seeing some chats going on. And just as a reminder, if you can limit your use of the chat function to just technical issues, if you have a comment, please, for open meeting purposes, feel free to say it to the group. And it looked like both Mike and maybe Candy had a few comments.
Go ahead, Candy.
So a couple of the things that came up were, and Mike, I'll go try to hit yours too. You know, maybe we need to do an amendment to what we have already. And does it really have to be 30 hours or can it be 15? I really think we need to reach out to the staff and ask them what it's going to take to do this. And my last comment was, I think maybe letting us mull this over a little bit and think about this and then come back, or even have a questionnaire or something and come back to this at the next meeting, because this is a big topic. This is a huge topic, and to think about how to do this. As Chuck says, he's teaching all over. I review principles of real estate all over the country. We're the hardest ones. And I think we just maybe need to adjust our content in the way we're emphasizing it. But I think throwing it at me this morning, and I knew about it, but throwing it at us this morning, I think we need to mull on this a little bit. Just my 2 cents.
I tend to agree with Candy on that. I'm trying to figure out a way just to put this thing together. And should we have oh gosh, the evil word, task force to look at this? Should we, I don't know how, I think the content, I'm with Chuck Jacobus. I think some of this content that's in this class is, how to negotiate commercial lease. That's ridiculous. I'd rather focus on something else that's more fundamental. I mean, I teach a real estate finance course at St. Edward's. It's into the ultimate deep detail for seniors in accounting and finance. What do you think we ought to do, folks? Ruben, I see you're up. Ruben? Uh-oh. All right. I with Candy, I think we need to think some more about this. Should we think as independently as members, or should we put together a focus group on it? I don't know.
May I suggest that we put together a focus group on it and say what is missing in the existing courses, in the existing brokerage course, in the existing law course, maybe the existing broker responsibility course. What are we missing in those courses that we're trying to reintroduce with this course? And if we can pick out the little things that are missing, then we can concentrate on how to beef up those courses and put better content into them. My suggestion.
It's a good suggestion. I agree with that. Any other thoughts about that?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, I was on mute a minute ago.
That's okay.
I agree with that. I'd hate to wait till April though to do something, and that's 4 months from now. I'd rather we do a task force so we can move forward with this and do some more research on it quickly before our next meeting. Thank you.
Good point. Can we go ahead and establish that task force now, Abby, Jen? Can we do that today? Take volunteers?
We can certainly do that today. Jen, did you want to add anything to this discussion?
Well, I'm not sure, to be honest. I'm hearing a couple of different directions, and I think a lot of really good feedback from this group. There is an outline that I put together that is not part of your meeting materials. It's separate. And I'm hearing that a working group might be appropriate. I don't know if you want to look at this outline as a group here, or if you would prefer to have a working group look at the outline. It is certainly, all it is a very rough draft of some concepts that, you know, I think this group has expressed lack of existence in current relationships and things like that between the brokers and the sales agents. We could do, as far as asking staff what, you know, what would be more workable, either one would be fine. We can work with creating a new course. We could work with incorporating content into existing courses. I kind of wanted to bring up to this group this concept. You know, we started, the ESAC started revising content of qualifying courses in 2014. And rolled out over the course of years, several years, getting to each of the qualifying courses. It might be worthwhile for ESAC now that those courses have been in existence for 5 to 7 years. Is it appropriate for this group to maybe every 5 or so years take a look again at the content? Now that we know how it's performing, and then this discussion is really appropriate in that, well, what's missing and what's not missing? What do we not, maybe not get right the first time, and where can we beef it up? So I don't know that that answers anything. Staff can work with either direction that this committee wants to go in. And that's my 2 cents so far.
It's good. Well, I think the consensus would establish a focus group and try to get them to meet pretty quickly, and then start distributing the information that comes out for everybody else's thoughts. Would that make sense?
I think we need to do that
right away. And I guess the best way to do it is to take volunteers, and one way to do it. I volunteer.
Dolores had her hand up and she just did it again.
That's just what I was going to say.
Okay, my thought, and this is a question for Jennifer and Abby and Vanessa, whomever's on legal. There's a lot of thought on broker responsibility, their group, and ESAC. Would it be appropriate, because I think this is just such good productive things that y'all are doing today, appropriate for that focus group to perhaps have some from the broker responsibility group and ESAC on that same focus group? That's a question for Jennifer and Abby. What is your thoughts on that? Because we're going to be they're going to fall under both those groups.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Commissioner Wilkinson. And I think we could certainly look into that. Broker Responsibility Working Group is meeting, I believe, next week. So that's certainly something we could ask if they would, someone would be willing to participate in the group that we may create here today. So that's certainly an option.
Good idea. Very good idea. Ruben, your hand's still up.
Just volunteering, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
Do we need a motion to create this group to include a liaison or a representative from the broker responsibility work group, or are we just okay creating it without a motion?
I think for consensus purposes, it would be great to have a motion, just so we know kind of the
So move.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Okay. All right. So. Let's see who else is in. All right, how do we want to do that? Who wants to volunteer for the quote focus group? Do we do it by show of hands in our chat thing? Raise a hand.
Look at your screen.
I have a logistics question for staff with regards to how many can be on the work group without creating a meeting.
Open meeting, yes. Yeah, so we want to make sure we have less than quorum, which is 7. So typically we've stuck to maybe around 3 or 4 for a working group. I mean, we could go up to 5 even, but you just want to stay under that quorum.
Yeah, we probably should leave a slot or two though for somebody from the broker group. Oh, but that wouldn't be a quorum for us.
Yeah, right.
That's right.
But certainly a good point. Yeah, but we'll have to consider broker responsibility working group if someone there wants to participate or multiple people want to participate. And just generally, I think sometimes smaller groups can be a little easier for discussion purposes, just to get things done. But really, kind of your call.
Well, it sounds like I'm hearing you say, Abby, 5 is probably the max we ought to have.
Yeah, so anything under quorum, which is 7. And again, I only mentioned 3 or 4 because that's typically what we've seen in terms of working group numbers is that amount. But it could be higher than that. Just again, we have to stay under the quorum, which is 7.
Okay. Let's see, it looks like we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hands raised, if that's where we are. Anybody, is that what I'm counting over here on the side of my screen?
I'd like, if I can interject, I just want to let everybody know also that in the next, well, by March, we're going to start putting together the writing group for the new the 6-hour broker responsibility course. So there's opportunity, I think, for ESAC to make some recommendation, maybe separate from this action. Like if you want to see something focused on in the new BRC book, you could make those recommendations. So just keep that in mind also. For those of you who may not end up working on the committee, there's still a place for ESAC to recommend content.
I think focus group ought to look into both of them.
Absolutely.
Not to derail. Sorry, didn't mean to derail.
Well, Abby, I mean, do you think the 6 we've got, is that okay?
I think that's okay. The only thing to consider would be how many you think would be beneficial from broker responsibility working group. And then again, if you have larger groups, then sometimes that can be more difficult in terms of scheduling and fostering, dialogue and that sort of thing. So if you wanted, and again, just kind of playing around with numbers here, but if you thought, well, let's have 3 from ESAC and 3 from BRWG or 4 from ESAC and, however many from BRWG. I mean, you can do 6, but just keeping in mind that if you want that participation from BRWG, again, that would increase your count, obviously.
Well, I definitely think we ought to have the group, some folks from BRWG, without a doubt. How many that is, I guess, determine how many they want to volunteer, I suppose, right?
Sure.
Well, I took a photograph of my screen. Looks like we've got 6. So, Commissioner, I see your hands up. Would you like to say something?
Just a thought. It might be everyone that's got their hand up. I would love to see everyone participate that wants to participate, and I'm sure you all would too. How about a liaison from the broker responsibility group? That would be one. In other words, that would cut down so that you could go ahead and have everyone in this group.
Okay. Good idea.
Just a thought.
Thank you. Any other thoughts on item number 9? We've sure talked about a lot. I think we kind of determined there's going to be a focus group. It looks like we've got 6 members. Jen, how would we ideally proceed at this point? Start setting a date?
Yeah, I think I probably will defer to Abby on that in terms of procedure.
Okay, so I've written down the names here. So just to confirm, we've got our chair, Byron, Cassie, and Chuck, Candy, and Ruben are 6 members. And then in terms of scheduling, we'll have Amber reach out separately and coordinate a meeting time with you all, particularly after BRWG, to talk to them about, having potentially a liaison on this working group. So it would TBD.
Okay, no, it's fine. And next week is when the BRWG group meets. BRWG.
Correct.
Okay. Well, I think that's where we are on 9. Is there anything else on number 9 that I've missed or that we need to do at this point?
I think from my perspective, I think we've got enough to move forward. Anything you need, Jen?
No, I don't think so. I think I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, well then we'll move on. Number 10, discussion regarding agenda items for next meeting. Obviously, we'll have an agenda item about the report of the focus group. I like that better than task force. Focus group sounds better. Report from the focus. Any other items that anybody can think of that we want to put on the agenda now?
Will Pam come back and continue to give us a report like she did today? Is that going to happen at every meeting?
Yes, I usually do it. I just didn't have anything for the last 2 meetings. I didn't have any education.
Okay.
Yeah, and no education cases that resulted in disciplinary action, but I did close some.
Good.
And one thing I just thought of that we had removed from as a standing agenda item, but I just wanted to remind everybody of is, TREC is doing a really great job of sending out educational newsletters to providers. They're sending out a lot of great just tips and tricks and information. And so if there's something that you see that you think would be beneficial to share with staff to put on that, please don't forget. You can always just shoot them an email and they'll consider it for those emails and that communication out to both the providers as well as the licensees. So just a reminder there.
Thanks for that, Kalea.
You're welcome.
Okay. One last question I have. In our focus group is not open meeting, but can we record that and share that with all the members of ESAC? Is that bad?
We can certainly record it, and I don't see any issue with sharing that recording. So I think that'd be fine.
I mean, that was just a wild idea that came to my mind that ESAC could better prepare. Say we meet within the next week or two, or next month or so, not week or two, then we could record that and it'd be available if someone wanted to review that, right?
Sure.
Just a thought. Okay, any other additional items we want to put on, anything we need to put on next time other than what this new one we've talked about? If I think of one. Okay. Well, we've currently, I think we've discussed here at number 11, we'll discuss the possible future meeting dates. Current dates for the next meetings are April 4th, and then that's a Monday and Tuesday, July the 5th. Are we still okay with those dates, our new members? Anybody have a change on those dates? Maybe Omicron will fade away and we can finally meet in person, which sure makes this a lot easier. I want to back up what Chuck Jacobus said. I cannot stand teaching at the college level by Zoom. It's just that, especially senior level folks or graduate students, you've got to have that relationship. You've got to be able to walk up after the classroom and, the shy people come up and bring in the great questions. To me, I think it's critical. I think Zoom makes it very difficult. So are we okay with Monday, April 4th and July the 5th for our next 2 meetings? Any objections?
I know y'all are looking at your calendars, but July 4th is that Monday, and I don't know if people will be traveling or taking that day off. It's fine for me, but just throwing it out there from a calendaring perspective.
We've got alternative dates we could do July 6th or 7th, but what's anybody think? That's a Wednesday or Thursday.
I think that might be nice to do for staff purposes, just because so many people tend to take the day off of July 4th for fireworks off.
How about?
I would vote for the 6th or 7th.
Okay. Do we need to set that now? Can we bring that up next time? We want to set it now, set aside?
It's up to you.
How about
I would set it now.
How about the 7th? That's a Thursday. Everybody like the 7th? Any objections? Candy, you've got your hand up, Marion? Candy? I see you. Oh, gone. All right. Well, why don't we say April 4th, Monday, and then Thursday, the 7th of July? If there's anything else anybody wants to say, we can, or I'll move to adjourn. Thank you for bearing with me as I struggle to try to get through today. Number 9 was interesting. It's in so many different directions, but I think it's right. Ruben.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, thank you. Just a comment. I've been under the direction of former Chair Youngblood, and I just want to say it's been a pleasure working with her as the chair, and she's done a fabulous job. And as always, she's the well-dressed professional, and makes us very proud to be a part of what she does. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
And I appreciate y'all's confidence in me. Please, at any time, day or night, contact me, any of the members. If I don't get back to you at midnight, I'll get back to you in the morning. My kids are grown and gone.
And roster sent out as well. A new roster would be helpful too, Abby.
Yeah,
that'd be great. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Okay. Thank y'all very much. We'll be look for information. Thank you,
Happy
Kelly.
New Year.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.